Welcome to Midlife Unraveled, the podcast that takes you on a journey through the twists and turns of midlife. I'm your host, Anita Gilbert, and I've transitioned from the corporate world of investment banking to become the proud owner of a yoga and Pilates studio. Together, we're going to navigate the exhilarating roller coaster that is midlife. Each episode, we dive deep with a seasoned expert to rediscover and redefine how to live our best during this life-changing period. Join us every Tuesday for new episodes, brimming with wisdom, insights, inspiration, and a laugh along the way. So strap in, because Midlife Unraveled is about to redefine the way you embrace midlife. Subscribe today and take this journey with us. I am so excited today to be here with Sarah Rusbatch. We are talking about grey area drinking. Sarah is the author of the best-selling book Beyond Booze, as well as a health and wellbeing coach, a grey area drinking coach, and a menopause accredited coach. She's a motivational speaker and a passionate ambassador for helping as many women as possible to live their best life. This is a great conversation, and if you do feel inspired to contact Sarah to learn more and to work with her going forward, please, you'll see how to contact her in the show notes. But this is a conversation that I think you will absolutely love. Let's get straight in. Sarah, I am so excited to welcome you to Midlife Unraveled.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we are here to talk about the very interesting subject of grey area drinking. Now, I've been looking forward to this, and I've mentioned this to several people, and it always gets a very, very interesting reaction. People seem to look inward, and it's actually one that can make many of us feel a little bit uncomfortable. So let's start by outlining what actually is grey area drinking.
So in the alcohol health world, where we talk about people with problems related to alcohol, the terminology, they don't use the term alcoholic, they use the term alcohol use disorder, and that would be mild, moderate, or severe. But most people in the general public don't use that term, and we've all been raised to believe someone is an alcoholic or they're not. And we consider alcoholics, well, I certainly did, and I know a lot of people do. We have that stereotype in society that an alcoholic is someone who wakes in the morning with trembling hands, reaches for a drink. Maybe they've lost their home or their job or their relationship, and their whole life is in tatters, and they are just completely dependent on alcohol. And if someone doesn't meet that criteria, as most people don't, then we almost get lulled into this false sense of going, well, I'm not that, so therefore I'm okay. Yeah. So therefore I don't have a problem because I still go to the gym and I still go to work and I've never pulled a sickie because of a hangover, and it's not having such an impact on my life that I can't function. But what we now know is that there is this grey area where it's not people who are physically dependent with that rock bottom type drinking, but nor is it people that are just take it or leave it drinkers, people that are just like, do I fancy a drink? Nah, can't be bothered. The grey area is people in the middle who are not reaching that criteria for physical dependence, needing medical support to withdraw from alcohol, but nor are they someone that just drinks every now and then. They're someone that is using alcohol in some way, but they're still highly functioning, and they've not yet reached a point where they consider themselves bad enough, quote unquote, to need to stop.
Because I've also heard the term functioning alcoholic, which I think would encompass a lot of that group. Those people who, like you said, are going to the gym and getting up. They've never been, alcohol use has never impacted their life in a negative way that they've had to stop doing what they're doing, but they're not necessarily able to stop or wanting to stop.
A lot of people ask me, what's the number? So what's the amount of alcohol that you need to be drinking to define as to whether you've got a problem? Because that's human nature, right? So if I say it's a bottle of wine a night and they go, phew, I drink half a bottle of wine a night, therefore I'm okay, then people will go, I don't have a problem. But I think it's really helpful to think about it like this. So number one, On the Huberman Lab podcast, the neuroscientist Huberman describes alcohol use disorder as anything above 12 units of alcohol a week. So that's about 7 glasses of wine a week, like self-pour glasses. So that would mean a person having a glass of wine a night. Now, most people wouldn't consider that to be problematic. They would think that's normal, in fact. But it comes down to, can you get through a night without it? Have you got some kind of emotional dependence on it? Like for any of your listeners listening now, like the question I always pose is, so if I said to you right now, from tomorrow, we're going to take a month off booze. Just from tomorrow, we're going to take a month off and we'll see how we feel. If the first thought is fear, or if the first thought is, I can't, or if the first thought is, oh, but I've got that wedding and that holiday and that 50th and that 40th and that girls' weekend, then we've got a relationship with alcohol where we're associating it with needing it for something, whether that's stress relief, whether that's we've associated that we can't have fun without it, which was definitely the case for me, and that kept me stuck for a really long time. Whether it's that it might have become a crutch for a whole range of different things. So it's about understanding, because someone that doesn't have a problem with alcohol, and I said to them, right, we're going to take a month off from tomorrow, they'd be like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
It's a very different way of looking at it when you're looking at actually withdrawing the alcohol and using that as a measure rather than the amount that you're drinking, because we all know that our pour of one glass is nothing like the standard government out guidelines, etc. So I mean, I know I would never pour a glass of wine like that. So we're already out of sync with what recommendations would be.
Totally.
So tell me, Sarah, where did this interest come from for you?
So I was a classic grey area drinker. I started drinking at 14. I grew up in the north of England. It was very normal to do that. And then went straight to uni. I prided myself on being a big drinker. Like, I was Sarah the party girl. I could match the boys pint for pint down at the student union. I had a big capacity for alcohol, and I thought that was something to be applauded. The next day, if people were lying on the sofa feeling a bit rough after a night out, I was like, come on, what's wrong with you? Let's go to the pub and have hair of the dog. Like, I enjoyed drinking. I liked that feeling of getting drunk. I worked out, when you start drinking at a young age and people start giving you feedback, oh, you're hilarious when you're drunk. Oh, you're so much fun when you're drunk. Then as a young girl, you started creating this idea that, that's what makes me fit in. That's what people enjoy my company when I'm drunk. And
it's making you a better person.
You tell yourself the story that's how I'm going to be liked. That's how I'm going to make friends. And so, fast forward then, this coincided with, I moved to London when I was 21, and this was in the late 90s. So this was going into that whole era of girl power and Sex and the City. And we had this real kind of female independent movement that, we had Samantha in Sex and the City that was drinking her cosmopolitans and having one night stands and didn't need to rely on a man for anything and was making her own money. And there were tons of role models in the UK at the time who were these big party girls that were drinking and smoking and having loads of fun and didn't rely on being someone's other half. They were doing it on their own. And there was this real movement back then that was, in many ways, it was a real rise in feminism and liberating women, but in many ways as well, I think it really was the era where women's drinking started to become really, really problematic. And this was also the time that what I now know is that the big alcohol companies around this time, they'd all sat there, probably a lot of white middle-aged men, I imagine, around a table kind of talking about how do we make more money. And there was, there's discussions that have gone on in many, many books that talk about the fact that the alcohol industry for the first time started to segment its marketing, and they realized they were not making enough money from women. So they were like, how can we get women drinking more? So that was when they introduced drinks that they decided would be more palatable for women. So we saw the rise in Alco Pops. This was a way to get young girls drinking more. And we started seeing real targeted marketing at women. So whereas you had the alcohol for the beer marketing was to the men at the sporting events and the cricket and what have you, the women's marketing became about rosé all day and mummy wine time. You deserve it. You're a mum. Come and have a wine. And I feel like this was really the start of women normalizing everyday drinking as a way to unwind, as a way to switch off, as I deserve it, that's my reward. And again, that was, how it was for me. So I carried on that drinking, through my 20s, got married, and then moved to Australia, had 2 kids, was able to happily stop when I was pregnant. It didn't even occur to me that I had a problem with alcohol. Honestly, I knew myself as a big drinker, but didn't think it was a problem. And probably the wheels for me started to come off a little bit after having kids. And I think that was the perfect storm of the fact that we'd moved to Australia. So I had no family here, I had no long-term friends here. It was wiping the slate clean, starting again from scratch. I'd had a very successful career in London, and all of a sudden I was at home with 2 kids under 2 who were, as 2 kids under 2 are, they're demanding, they're a boy with a lot of energy who just relentlessly wanted a piece of me all the time. And I was spending my days pureeing baby food and going to monkey music and
I can so relate.
time.
I had 2 under 2, and I was in London in the late 90s as well, so I can very much relate to this.
Yeah, right. And yeah,
you are having a glass of wine at the end of the day because you deserve it. You feel that you should have, and it's a way to unwind, and it's a way to switch off as well from being a mum to doing the parenting and doing everything for the kids, and then this is my time to sit down. And that was very much, I agree what you were saying, it was very much accepted. Everybody accepted that this was mum's time to unwind, to sit down, have a glass of wine or 2 at the end of the day, to almost prep you up for the sleepless nights you're about to have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a reward. It was a reward.
It's a reward, and it was very normalized. And the problem is, so number one, alcohol's, according to Professor David Nutt, the 5th most addictive substance in the world. So
wow.
We do become, even if we don't become physically dependent on it, a lot of women become emotionally dependent on it. It becomes that crutch, it becomes that reward, it becomes that relaxant that we need at the end of the day. And then we also build tolerance. So what starts as 1 or 2 glasses is suddenly that's not enough. It's not touching the sides. Then I'm having the 3rd glass. And I've seen women get to the point where they're easily drinking 1.5 bottles to 2 bottles a night. But because their body has adapted and has tolerated it, they can get up and go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how the human body can adapt and organize itself to be able to cope with that level of alcohol. But it's also quite scary, right? And for me, my tolerance, was building up. So I was drinking more, but I didn't drink on Mondays and Tuesdays, so therefore I told myself I don't have a problem because I don't drink every day. I took breaks, so I would do little breaks, so just to prove to myself that I could. But the more I was taking these breaks, then it was almost like the more I was then drinking again when I was back to drinking. So I was going from binging to abstinence to binging to abstinence. And noticing as I got older, after I hit 40, the impact of alcohol on my sleep. So I was always waking at 3 a.m. when I drank. I noticed a real increase in anxiety, and I'd never had anxiety in my life. And I went to my GP and I was a mess and I was sobbing. And at no point did she say to me, how much are you drinking? Or didn't the alcohol question never came up.
Did it come up for you? Did you make any connection yourself?
Nothing. But she happily gave me a prescription for anti-anxiety meds, which I know should never have been mixed with alcohol.
Oh,
and I didn't take them, but I did then it was like a lot of things all happened in a short space of time. I then had a 40th birthday party that I went to. I got very drunk. I fell over. I didn't have any reflexes because I was drunk. I landed with my face on a concrete driveway. I cut
Ouch.
my nose, cut my lip, blood, got taken home, passed out. And I woke up the next morning to my 5-year-old daughter standing by my bed saying, "Mummy, what happened to your face?" And in that moment, I felt such self-disgust, such self-loathing, such pain.
Yeah.
And I would love to tell you I didn't drink again after that, but that night I drank wine out of a metal straw because I needed to numb the way I was feeling. And I didn't know how else to do that unless I used alcohol. But it did plant a seed. And it was 3 weeks later that I then went, right, I'm going to take 21 days off. They say it takes 21 days to break a bad habit. Because in my mind, all I had was a bad habit. I was drinking a bit too much, but I was still running half marathons. I was still running a business. I was very successful. Like on the outside, there were no red flags for anybody else about how my drinking was. But it was inside me that something was starting to feel really off. And so I took 21 days off and I felt amazing. And so I said, right, I'm going to keep going. And this was 2017. So this was the rise of like, there wasn't much in Australia, but Annie Grace had just written her book, This Naked Mind, and which was like a game-changing book for me about really understanding alcohol use, alcohol addiction, emotional addiction to alcohol, what it's doing to your brain, why you can't just have one. Like I read that and I was like, wow. And then at the same time, I joined a sober Facebook group of all these women in the UK who were removing alcohol. And everyone was really encouraging and supportive. So I got to the end of the 21 days and went, oh no, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to get to 100. So I got to my 100 and everything changed. Like my anxiety disappeared. I made more money in 3 months than I'd made the entire year before because I was so motivated, so driven, so energized. I had my own recruitment business. I lost weight. I was sleeping really well. I was smashing my gym targets. My skin was great. Everyone's like, what are you doing? You look amazing. I was feeling great with my kids. I felt like I had so much time. And so everything was going well, apart from this whole identity crisis of, well, who the hell am I if I'm not Sarah the party girl anymore? Because I don't know who I am. Like, what do I do to socialize? Like, I didn't go out a huge amount and I didn't see people that much. And if I did, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because I was with people who were drinking. And then I would find out that friends had had a couple of catch ups where I hadn't been invited because I wasn't drinking. And there was a mum at the school gates and she said to me, oh, let's catch up when you're drinking again.
Oh my God. You couldn't catch up for a coffee.
No, apparently not. But in fairness to her, I was a big drinker and people associated spending time with me with drinking with me. Like I would have been the first to be like, let's crack open the wine. So everyone's associations of me were very alcohol related. So I got to the 100 days, decided I'll go back to drinking, but I'll now be a moderate drinker and I will be someone who just has a glass of wine every now and then. And that was simply not possible for me. So very quickly, within about 3 weeks, I think I was back to drinking the same amount as I had been before. And then what followed was 2 years of taking breaks. I did 2 lots of 100 days. I did about 3 30-day challenges. And every time I learned something, and every time I was reinforcing this idea that everything in my life is better when I don't drink alcohol. But I needed to just prove that to myself a few times before I was ready to actually make that change. So April 2019, I had my last drink, so 5.5 years now. And then 2020, I retrained to become a health and wellbeing coach and a grey area drinking coach. January 21, I launched my business. And March 21, Mamma Mia interviewed me. And on the back of that interview, 8,000 women reached out to me and said, you've just told my story. I need help.
Oh, wow.
And since then, my business has just exploded, supporting women all over the world to change their relationship with alcohol and to actually realize that a life without alcohol is not boring.
Yeah.
That's what keeps us stuck for so long.
Yeah.
And that actually, when you just do a bit of work on yourself, you can go and create an amazing life without alcohol.
The thing is, it's so ingrained in our culture. Go for a drink. Alcohol is it's part of every celebration that we have. There's alcohol involved. You want to catch up with a friend, oh, we'll do it over a wine. It is so part of our culture. And I understand what you're saying, that, when you stop drinking, you almost stop having that entry into those festivities, into that celebration, whether that's just to catch up with a friend or it's actually, something bigger. You're almost not part of that anymore because you're not doing the thing that everybody's doing. How did you cope with that side of it?
It took time. It definitely took time. And I talk a lot about this in my book. I've just had a book come out called Beyond Booze. And there's a whole chapter on navigating that social connection and social life. I don't know that I went about it the right way. I think I wish I'd been more honest at the start, because I felt a huge amount of shame that I had reached a point where my drinking was so problematic that I felt like I had to stop. So I pretended to people that there was no problem. I just wanted to lose a bit of weight. So what that does is that means that you open yourself up to peer pressure. Well, just have vodka and soda. There's no calories in there.
Yeah.
Or people start going, oh, you don't need to lose weight. And whereas I think in actual fact, if I'd sat there and said, my mental health is really suffering, and since I've hit 40, I can't process alcohol like I used to, and I think my time is done, I think people would have been probably a bit more understanding.
Yeah.
But it's taken a while, and some of my friendships have changed. But to be honest with you, Anita, most of them are actually way deeper and way more authentic than they've ever been before. We just socialize differently. Like, I'm talking to you at 12 o'clock on a Thursday. I've had 2 catch-ups already today with and done like one big walk with one girlfriend, one trip to the park with our dogs with another girlfriend. Like, I just have different ways of connecting, and the connection we have is deeper, it's more authentic, it's more real, because it's not just getting pissed with people that maybe you don't even have a huge amount in common with, but you're just drinking with them.
Well, they're getting to know the real Sarah. They're not getting to know Party Sarah. And those two things are very, very different.
Yeah, and I had to get to know real me, right? Because I didn't know, because I've been drinking since I was 14.
Yeah.
And so the last 5.5 years has been a journey of really deep self-discovery.
Yeah.
But I was just talking to a girlfriend this morning, and I said, the fact is that most people will get to the end of their lives and never actually know who they are at their core, because they will never do that deeper work on themselves to know that. And that's one of the biggest gains of sobriety, has been getting to know who I really am and not masquerading behind alcohol.
Do you think that there was that people assumed you were an alcoholic?
Oh, for sure. Like, I was at a dinner party and a woman said to me, oh, can I pour you a wine? I'd never met her before.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, no, I don't drink. And she went, oh, why? Are you an alcoholic? Like the fact that
there's a huge stigma,
is her assumption.
Such a huge stigma.
I think it's changing a little, but we've got a long way to go, especially in Australia.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason someone would not drink alcohol would be because they're an alcoholic. Like, we romanticize alcohol, and we hide from the fact that it's a level 1 carcinogen in the same category as tobacco and asbestos. More than 3 glasses of wine a week for a woman increases your chance of breast cancer by 15%, and every drink above that will increase your chance of the breast cancer. And yet we have people question why we're choosing not to drink.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Bonkers.
So let's talk about the impact on women in menopause. What sort of changes or what's happening to us physically, mentally, and to our relationships when we're drinking in midlife? And we're talking that grey area drinking, not 1 glass of wine at a wedding or something like that. So that that real grey area, which is, that uncomfortable time where we're sort of thinking this could potentially be a problem. What's happening with when we throw menopause into the mix? What's going
Yeah,
on?
so there's a couple of things. So from our late 30s onwards, our liver volume begins to shrink.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't metabolize alcohol as effectively. Our liver's going to always struggle as we are aging, because our liver is aging and it shrinks. And so all of the toxins that come into our body have to be processed by our liver, and it just can't do that as effectively. And the second thing that is really important that women know is men and women both produce an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase, ALDH. And this is the enzyme in the human body that supports the body to process and eliminate alcohol from the body. Some genes, some people will be born without this, which is why some people just get really, really, really ill from alcohol. This is very common for people with Asian origin, and they have less of this enzyme ALDH, which is why they will find they get a lot of facial flushing when they drink and can be really, really sick and just can't tolerate alcohol. Men and women have different amounts of ALDH. Men produce a lot more than women do. So this is why a man is more effective at removing alcohol from the human body than a woman is. So more of the alcohol content enters a woman's bloodstream because her body is not as effective at metabolizing it. This means that for a woman, all of the health risks of alcohol will happen quicker. So men and women are both vulnerable to alcohol-related strokes, but in a woman it happens 4 times faster. Men and women are both vulnerable to heart disease, to the cancer risks of alcohol, but it will happen with less alcohol and quicker for women because our body can't process and eliminate alcohol as effectively, because alcohol's a poison to the human body.
Yeah.
As a woman ages, her levels of ALDH drop even more. So this is why once we're going into those menopause years, we're going to find that alcohol is going to start impacting our sleep more.
Yeah.
And this is why we start getting those 2 and 3 a.m. wake-ups. Alcohol hugely exacerbates hot flushes. So the problem with alcohol is most people drink at night, which is the worst time to drink if you're a menopausal woman, because you are going to get those hot flushes through the night and it's going to massively impact your sleep. So if you're going to drink at all, you're better off doing it at lunchtime and then detoxing it out of your body, drinking water all afternoon so that your body can actually allow you to have some sleep. With the brain, when we drink alcohol, the brain actually releases the stress hormone cortisol. So we know that if you have 2 people side by side, one of them never drinks and the other one drinks maybe 2 or 3 times a week, not a huge amount, the person who drinks alcohol has a higher baseline of the stress hormone cortisol than the people who doesn't, because alcohol causes us to release cortisol. And the irony is most people drink to relax and as a way to de-stress without realizing that actually the short-term effect is the numbing and the relaxing, but the longer-term effect in terms of like hours is the numbing relaxant happens in minutes.
Yeah.
The converse reaction of the increased cortisol happens a few hours later. So the next day you're going to be feeling more anxious, a little bit more on edge, and then you're going to crave alcohol to make those feelings go away, but those feelings were caused by the alcohol you had the day before. So you just end up in this
circle,
like vicious circle. Yeah, it's bonkers.
Wow. Goodness me. So what about on relationships? How is this impacting? So a woman who is drinking, who is very much well in that grey area zone during menopause, what kind of impact is this having on relationships around her?
It depends on the person, of course. It depends on the relationships that she's in. I would say that if we want to, I believe, and I'm talking from my own personal experience, there is no judgment here whatsoever. But I believe that if we want to have really deep relationships with our kids, that I couldn't do that when I was drinking, because I was distracted.
Wow.
I was tired. I didn't have energy. I think the statistic now is something like a daughter growing up with a mother with alcohol use disorder, even if it's mild, so more than that 12 units a week, 7 or 8 glasses of wine a week, is more, I think it's 4 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorder themselves because they've never had true self-care modeled to them.
Wow.
So
Or
if we think
self-care
about,
has been in the form of alcohol.
so yeah, so that's what they've seen is mum going, oh, I'm stressed, I've had a hard day, reaching for a wine. Like I grew up in a house where mum and dad socialised a lot. There was a lot of dinner parties and there was a lot of alcohol. So as a little girl,
Yeah.
my belief around alcohol was that's what adults do to have fun.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you're a grown up. And so I love the fact now, I love, 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 my kids are 13 and 14, that they see me go to raves, they see me go to barbecues, they
Love
see me go
it.
to concerts, they see me go on holiday, they see me do everything
Yeah.
without alcohol. And they will make their own choices. I'm certainly not the alcohol police going, you must never drink. But at least I know, hand on heart, I have role modeled to them that they don't need alcohol to have fun.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back.
Are you doing more with your life now?
Oh my God, I've achieved more in 5 years than I think I ever dreamed possible. Like
Yeah.
my life has
Yeah.
opened up in a way that I never ever dreamed. And this is not just me, like this is, I've supported thousands of women now. And this is what happens is I believe alcohol keeps women small. It keeps
Yeah.
our lives small. It keeps our self-belief negative. When you're waking up most mornings, having had a wretched night's sleep, with a bit of negative self-talk, a bit of self-loathing, feeling a 5 out of 10, getting through the day, surviving on caffeine, maybe forcing yourself to the gym to try and, sweat out the toxins from the booze the night before, and then you're getting through the day. That's existing.
It
That
doesn't
is
sound
not
like a lot of
living.
fun, to be honest.
Right? And I think that what happens, like one of my clients said to me, it's like going from living a life in black and white to living in colour. Like
Yeah.
that's how it feels.
Yeah. That's amazing. So let's look at how we can support people. Like what are the biggest triggers in your view that we should be aware of as a warning, really, to women out there who are maybe thinking that their drinking is becoming a problem?
So do you mean in terms of understanding what the signs might be that
Yeah,
they're in that grey
exactly.
area?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a few different points that we can consider. So the first one would be if we're someone that is often making rules around our drinking, but then often finding a way to justify breaking those rules.
Mm-hmm.
So we might kind of be like, oh, I don't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But then it's Wednesday and, oh, I really feel like a drink. Well, maybe I could have a drink tonight and then I just won't have one tomorrow. So I'll have tomorrow's drink now, then I can just have one now. And we start finding those ways of justifying our drinking. The second thing, we often drink more than we intend to. The third thing, maybe we're pissed off if there's an event and we can't drink for some reason. Maybe we've got to be the driver because we've got to go and pick our kid up from a party at 9:30, and so that means that we've got to stay sober. We feel pissed off about that. We feel resentful about that. Maybe it's, well, if the thought of taking 30 days off fills you with horror or you feel like you can't do it, then there's probably a sign that you're in that grey area.
Mm.
And if you've ever even questioned, do I have a problem with alcohol? I'd say you probably have a problem with alcohol because people who don't have a problem would never even ask themselves that question.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if we've noticed that alcohol's impacting us in a negative way, like I don't know many midlife women who don't find that alcohol's impacting their sleep, their anxiety, their energy, their mood, maybe hot sweats, finding it hard to lose weight. Like if you've noticed all those things and you're trying to cut down, but all attempts to cut down are not working, you're probably in that grey area.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all those menopause symptoms are made worse with alcohol. it is just exacerbated it. And even if you're on HRT or not, those, a couple of glasses of wine and those night sweats come back. Those hot flushes during the day can come back. So it seems to sort of undo all the good work that you may be doing through taking HRT or through other things that you're doing, and to make those differences to how you experience your menopause. And it's undoing all the good work, all the good food choices that you're making, the exercise choices that you're making, and throw a bit of alcohol into the mix, and it seems to undo everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was interviewing a menopause doctor the other day, and she was saying, there was so much stigma for so long about HRT and the risk with breast cancer. And, it's taken so long to get to a point where people are and women are less scared of it. But the thing that most people don't realize is if you drink alcohol when you're on HRT, that is going to be the thing that is going to increase your chances of breast cancer. It's not just taking HRT, because alcohol causes our circulating estrogen to increase. So that's what makes us more vulnerable to hormonal cancers, because if we're consuming something that's causing that increase in estrogen and it's not being processed and metabolized by the body, then that's when you're starting to fall into that area. So again, it's just about starting to realize, am I making the choices for me today that support me to feel how I want to feel, to live the life that I want to have the energy that I want to have? And if I'm not, then what do I need to do to change? Because change is possible. I've worked with women in their 70s, I've worked with women in their 20s. It doesn't matter the age, but if you've noticed in any way that alcohol is impacting you negatively, then you have full permission at any age to decide to take a break and just notice, well, how does it feel without it?
So how do we go about doing that? Okay, so we're drinking, say, 5 nights a week, and we think, okay, fine, this is having too big an impact. How do we go about stopping? Is it a case of cold turkey, or what do you recommend?
So be very mindful of how much you're drinking and seek medical advice before going cold turkey. So for anyone that is drinking significant amounts of alcohol every day, it would be better to speak to a GP, just to because going cold turkey can be fatal, because alcohol is one of only 3 substances that the human body can die from withdrawal from. So we need to be really, really careful on that. But if you're in the grey area, that's not likely to be you. And so my first thought is, I always say this: only you can do it, but you can't do it alone. We live in a world where alcohol is glamorized, it's expected, it's promoted, it's marketed. Most people will believe that there is nothing wrong with having, a few drinks on a Saturday night. So we're going to come under pressure. And what I find for most grey area drinkers is that they often surround themselves with other grey area drinkers, because then we're in this false echo chamber of going, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with my drinking because I just drink like everybody around me. That was, I could look at other people and there's always someone in the group that drinks a bit more than you. And I'd be like, well, I'm not that bad because I'm not as bad as her. So therefore I'm okay.
Say you're okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's great that's why I run these women's challenges 4 times a year for women to join and come and take 30 days off in a supportive group environment with other women who are all doing it at the same time. And I know that my programs are brilliant because they've supported thousands of women to change their relationship with alcohol. So don't do it alone. I would say start off with, we need to really work out, why do I drink? So be kind of really conscious of, what are my triggers? Is it that it's always 5 o'clock when it's witching hour and I'm getting the dinner ready and the kids are being, irritable and tired after school and I just want that wine? So what can we do instead? So for some ladies, an alcohol-free drink really scratches the itch, and they'll have an alcohol-free wine, and it's keep the ritual, change the ingredient, just have a different drink at that time. For others, it's go out and go for a walk, do some exercise, go and have a bath. I think for me, in the first 3 months of sobriety, I had a bath every night at 5 o'clock. I had to, like, I'm a Pisces, I'm a water baby, like that, like a bath to me is like perfect, love it.
Yeah.
Other people are like, oh my God, you lie in your own dirty bath water. But I'm so English, and so to me, a
Love a
bath is
bath.
like
Love a
heaven.
bath.
Yeah, yeah. But it's find what it is for you.
But it's taking you away from that danger zone of,
Yeah,
if you're staying in the environment where the alcohol is close by, then it's too tempting. So taking yourself out of that position in that time that you know is going to be difficult is I can see that working really, really well. Go for a walk, like you said, take the dog for a walk, or have a bath, or
yeah.
whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, so that works really well, and we have great fun in the challenges because we all make up a name for our like alter ego that is the one that wants to drink. So we've got a wine witch, or we've got the vodka villain, or we've got the beer bitch, or whoever it is. And then it's kind of like you are disassociating yourself from the craving. It's like, oh, there's the wine
Yeah.
witch. She's coming tonight. She's really strong. She's telling me to have a drink. She can bugger off. I'm not drinking. Like I'm going to go and do something else instead. And so we, you know, we make it fun and we keep it super supportive in the community. And so work out what your triggers are, and then we've got to add in when we take out. And that's what my book is all about, Beyond Booze, is about how do I create a life I love so much I don't need to drink, or I don't want to drink.
Yeah.
And so it's about, well, what are you doing for your brain health? Are you exercising so that you're producing dopamine and endorphins? Are you getting authentic connection? Do you have something in your life that really interests you that you look forward to doing? Because what I find, the three biggest reasons, I've got a community of 20,000 women now, and I did a poll and said, what are or were the reasons for your drinking? And there were three reasons, Anita, and they were boredom, stress, and loneliness. So,
Oh,
and these are all midlife women.
wow.
So they're bored, they're busy, but they're bored. They're busy,
Yeah.
busy, busy, doing all the things for all the people, but they're not doing anything for them that lights them up. They don't have hobbies, they don't have interests because there's no time, or they're knackered because they've been working and sorting the kids and doing all of that. So
Yeah.
you've got that. You've got stress because they're just overwhelmed from doing all the things. And you've got loneliness because you can be surrounded by people but still feel lonely if you are not
Exactly.
able to show up as your most authentic self. And
Exactly.
alcohol is a really good distraction from all three of those emotions,
Yeah.
and boredom, stress, and loneliness. And so that's what my book focuses on, is how do we manage stress without booze? How do we create a fulfilling and interesting life with interests and hobbies and things that light us up? And how do we create authentic connection? And when we can do that, the need for alcohol just isn't there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So what do you suggest to people? What do they say to other people? Because I'm just thinking about your example where you're at the dinner party and you said that you don't drink, and having that assumption of other people just because you're not drinking, you're an alcoholic, and people feel awkward about that. They feel embarrassed about that. They feel like they have to almost justify the reason they're not drinking. What do you suggest they say?
I think it depends on the scenario and who you're with. Like I always say, it's the only time that I think it's okay to tell a little white lie. If it just gets someone off your back and not like prompting you, if it's a stranger or something, like, oh, I'm on really strong antibiotics, or I'm training for a marathon, I've got to get up early tomorrow, or like I've got to drive, like whatever
Yeah.
it might
Yeah.
be, just brush it off and move on. But you always want to make sure you've got someone in your corner. So you always want to make sure that whether it's a partner, whether it's your best friend or your sister or your mum or whoever it is, that you're just honest with them about, this is, you know, alcohol's just been making me feel shit and it's really impacting my mental health, and I'm going to take a break and I'm going to see how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. And they may be interested to join you
Yeah,
and create
exactly.
that community as well around them.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Now this is such great information to share with people, and I think we all start to question our own drinking and, you know, our own relationships with alcohol, which I think is a positive thing. So, what are the three takeaways that you can give people today to start to implement into their own lives?
I think the first is, if you don't try, you won't know. So most people never take a long enough break from alcohol to know how they'll feel without it, because they'll go, oh, I don't drink that much. It's not going to make that much difference because I never feel hungover. but you'd be surprised. Even one drink will impact your sleep because of what alcohol does to the brain, and impacting the sleep cycle. So take a break, give yourself 30 days off, just to give yourself some information to see, well, what's life like without it? How do I feel? What's my energy like? What's my mood like? How do I parent? How do I show up at work? Like, there's so many studies being done that show the benefits of taking 30 days off. And it's far reaching. It's, it's saving money, it's weight loss, it's glowing skin, it's increased sense of positive well-being. That there are lots of benefits. So if you don't try, you don't know. So give yourself the chance to try. The second thing would be, we've got to add in when we take the alcohol out. So we can't just take it out and not have anything else in terms of our tools to support us. So whether we add in exercise, whether we add in a new hobby, whether we add in alcohol-free drinks, like whatever it is, but take the alcohol out and add something else in.
You want to feel like you're getting a treat, I feel. Like you want to feel like there's something special that you're able to enjoy instead of that. Whatever it happens to be, it doesn't have to be chocolate cake, but I'm just saying.
Look, it often is chocolate cake, and I always say, in the first 3 months, eat the bloody chocolate cake. It's okay, right? We'll deal with the chocolate cake at a later stage, but if that is what stops you drinking, then that's what we're going to do right now.
Do what you have to do to get through.
Yeah. And I think the third thing would be, honestly reflect on your life right now, and honestly reflect on your relationship with alcohol. And honestly ask yourself, does it negatively impact you in any way? And if it does, be open to taking that break and just see it as an experiment, because you only get one life.
Exactly.
And you are allowed to change, and you're allowed to grow, and you're allowed to evolve. And women, as we're aging, alcohol affects us. We can't metabolize it as well, and it's really normal to find that it's causing more anxiety, that it's impacting our sleep, that it's destroying our energy. And at that point, you've got a decision to make. Do you carry on drinking, feeling like crap a lot of the time, or do you go, right, maybe I'm done, maybe my drinking days are behind me, I've had a great time, but maybe I'm now looking at my future me, and maybe I want to prioritize my health and my well-being so that I age with the best chance of living well into my 80s that I can give myself.
Exactly. I think they're huge things to think about, and something that we start to, when you start to really look at it seriously, does it need to be that bigger part of our lives? When you were talking in your own story about having alcohol there, and then the relationships with your children changing a lot and with other people, I think that's huge, because it doesn't take up your time and attention. Alcohol is taking up your time and attention, and then you take that away and you've actually got more of you to enjoy the people around you, enjoy the things around you, enjoy your career, and actually build those things, rather than have that focus on alcohol, whether we recognize it or not.
Yeah. It's the only way I can describe it is like absolute freedom.
Yeah.
It's like, just my mind is just so clear, and to not have that constant negotiation. Well, I drink tonight. I said I wasn't going to, but I really fancy a drink. Maybe I could just, that chatter that just went on
I'll just have one.
The time.
That'll be okay.
Like we're having a beautiful weather week here in Perth this week. And so for old Sarah, that would have been a huge trigger. Like, the weather's a massive trigger. And that would have been like, oh, just because it's sunny, I need to go and buy some champagne so I can sit in the garden and have a champagne. And now this Sarah is like, oh, yay, it's getting light, because I'm training for a marathon at the moment. I'll get up and go for my run at 5:30 in the morning. And it's just priorities change.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing this with us. I think a lot of people are going to start thinking very, very seriously about what they're drinking, how they're drinking, and hopefully making some changes going forward.
Yeah, and for any of your listeners, get my book, Beyond Booze. There's so much in there that's, so supportive and helpful. Or reach out to me. I've got a women's alcohol-free challenge starting on the 1st of October. So we'll be doing 30 days. You should come and do it, Anita.
I think I will, actually. I think I will.
It's an amazing, we bring in incredible guest experts, and there's a lot of information in there just to support you to take that 30 days off, and then to reassess. Go, okay, how do I feel now?
And I think surrounding yourself with other people who are not drinking gives you that solidarity, gives you that support. You can share funny stories, all that kind of thing actually makes you feel so much better about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Totally. Like, we'll have women go into the group and they'll be like, oh my God, my kids are driving me nuts and the white witch is screaming. And like within seconds, they will have people commenting, going, don't do it, don't have a drink, go for a walk, go and have a bath,
Get the
kids
chocolate
the
cake.
iPad. Like, yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it.
So,
well done, Sarah. You've done such amazing work in this space, and something that you've implemented and you've changed people's lives. And I think that's really to be credited. Yay!
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Sarah.
Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share and subscribe so you can stay updated with more from Midlife Unraveled. To see more Midlife Unraveled, follow us at midlifeunraveled.com or at Midlife Unraveled on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you soon.